For decades, the Swaggart name has echoed across pulpits, television sets, and YouTube streams, upheld by faith, family, and fiery sermons. But behind the camera lights and polished pews lies a scandalous and emotional tale that many in the Christian world have never truly understood: the chaotic, heart-wrenching, and shocking marital journey of Donnie Swaggart, son of televangelist legend Jimmy Swaggart. Donnie's marriage, divorce, second marriage, and then return to his original wife Debbie isn't just a simple love story gone awry. It's a tale riddled with hidden manipulation, emotional breakdowns, ministry panic, and deep-seated spiritual guilt. So, why did Donnie Swaggart leave Debbie, marry Judy, divorce her, and return to Debbie again? And where does Gabriel, his son, truly fit in this complex story? Let's peel back the curtain. And trust us, what you're about to read might shake your beliefs. Part 1. The First Love, Donnie and Debbie. From the outside, Donnie and Debbie Swaggart seemed like the perfect Christian couple. They had 3 beautiful children, including the now famous pastor and media preacher, Gabriel Swaggart, and they served the Lord together, side by side at Jimmy Swaggart Ministries JSM. Donnie, groomed from the very start to carry the Swaggart legacy, relied heavily on Debbie for emotional balance. Debbie, known for her calm yet firm demeanor, often kept the Swaggart family glued together behind the scenes. But as JSM expanded and cameras followed Donnie everywhere, the couple began drifting apart. Friends close to the family began whispering about Donnie's growing ego, stress, and spiritual burnout. According to one source, Donnie wasn't cheating, he was just exhausted, confused, and lost. By early 2003, the cracks in the marriage had become undeniable. Long periods of emotional distance, spiritual misalignment, and lifestyle disagreements led to a heartbreaking divorce between Donnie and Debbie, the first fracture in what once seemed like a perfect ministry couple. Part 2. Enter Judy, the second chapter. Only months after his divorce from Debbie, Donnie shocked the entire ministry world by marrying Judy, a woman whose presence had barely been acknowledged before. Judy was vibrant, charismatic, and spiritual, a woman who captivated Donnie at a moment when he was vulnerable and searching, but behind her bright smile was a deep hunger for influence. Ministry insiders say Judy tried to change everything, from the decor of the ministry's private halls to the way Donnie dressed and preached. It was a whirlwind romance that quickly turned into a hurricane of conflict. Judy was never accepted by the ministry family, said a former employee. Frances didn't trust her, and Jimmy refused to even publicly acknowledge the marriage. Even Gabriel Swaggart, Donnie's son, reportedly kept a cold distance from Judy, and behind closed doors, Judy herself confessed to friends, "He still loves Debbie. I'm just a shadow in her place." Part 3. Frances Swaggart's secret intervention. Let's be honest, Frances Swaggart, Donnie's mother and Jimmy's wife, is the real backbone of JSM. She's sharp, strategic, and fiercely protective of the family's image. Multiple insiders now confirm that it was Frances who orchestrated the eventual separation between Donnie and Judy. She allegedly called a private family meeting and warned Donnie, "You've got 2 choices, this woman, or the ministry. You can't have both." This ultimatum shook Donnie to his core. Torn between a woman who had comforted him in a time of need and a family that represented his legacy, Donnie began to spiral emotionally. Part 4. Gabriel's private plea. Amid the chaos, it was Gabriel Swaggart, Donnie's son, who made the most heartbreaking move. In a private letter, never before made public, Gabriel allegedly wrote to his father, "I miss our family, I miss Mom, I don't recognize this life anymore, please come back." Those words, according to sources, broke Donnie's heart. It was the moment he realized he had made a mistake that was bigger than personal happiness. It had fractured the very foundation of the Swaggart legacy. Part 5. Judy's meltdown and shocking accusation. When Donnie finally told Judy it was over, the aftermath wasn't pretty. Judy, feeling betrayed and discarded, allegedly stormed out of their Baton Rouge estate, and later threatened to expose Donnie's private confessions and emotional breakdowns. Some say she kept a journal, filled with entries about Donnie's mental state, frustrations with the church, and his deep guilt over leaving Debbie. While that journal has never surfaced publicly, the threat of it kept the Swaggart family on edge for months. Part 6. The return to Debbie. Redemption or reputation. In 2006, barely 3 years after his split from Debbie, Donnie quietly reunited with her. There was no grand announcement, no public ceremony. It was done humbly, almost secretly. Many believed it was love that brought them back together. And perhaps that's partially true. But sources inside the ministry say it was also about preserving the Swaggart name. People were talking, The donations were dipping, and Frances couldn't afford another scandal, said a longtime church staffer. So Donnie and Debbie were remarried for the second time, and since then, they've projected an image of unity, restoration, and godly order. But deep down, the scars remain. Part 7. What does this mean for Gabriel? Gabriel Swaggart now leads much of the media outreach for JSM. He's a polished, charismatic speaker, but he's also a man forged in the fire of his parents' chaos. The trauma of watching his family fall apart, only to come back together in a forced reunion, shaped his theology, his worldview, and his preaching style. Some say Gabriel is too perfect, too rehearsed, a man overcompensating for a childhood that was anything but stable. Others say he is the future of JSM, because he carries both his father's passion and his mother's resilience. Part 8. Is the story truly over? Not quite. While Donnie and Debbie now live as husband and wife again, many in Baton Rouge, and within the wider evangelical world, believe that the full truth has never come out. There are still whispers about what Judy really knew. There are rumors of secret counseling sessions, internal church memos, and legal non-to-disclosure agreements signed to protect the ministry. And Donnie? He rarely speaks of that chapter. On camera, he smiles, he preaches, he gives God the glory. But in private, those who know him best say he carries the weight of it all. Final thoughts, behind the curtain. The story of Donnie Swaggart isn't just a scandal, it's a reflection of the human heart under pressure, of what happens when family, faith, fame and failure all collide. Some will say Donnie made things right by returning to Debbie, others believe he never should have left in the first place. But no matter where you stand, one thing is clear. The Swaggarts may preach about redemption, but they've lived every ounce of it. And for now, that's the gospel behind the glass. Behind the polished sermons, southern smiles and extravagant suits lies a painful and complex family narrative soaked in secrets and spiritual manipulation. Today, we're exposing the entire twisted timeline. Donnie married Debbie Swaggart decades ago. She was the quintessential pastor's wife, graceful, quiet, and obedient to the ministry's image. But insiders say their marriage was never as picture-perfect as it appeared. Allegedly, Debbie struggled with Donnie's deep insecurities and his ever-present need to escape his father's shadow. More than once, she was overheard telling close friends that she felt like the second woman in his life, after Jimmy. By the early 2000s, tension had boiled over. Donnie, known to take long ministry trips away from home, started appearing with Judy, an attractive blonde with a strong voice and even stronger opinions. Members at Family Worship Center were confused when Donnie stopped referring to Debbie altogether. In what seemed like a blink, Donnie had divorced Debbie and married Judy. No public announcement, no explanation, just a switch. But here's where it gets messier. Rumors immediately spread that Judy was brought in by Frances Swaggart herself. Not because she supported the breakup, but because she hoped a stronger woman might help control Donnie's erratic behavior. Some say Judy was Frances approved, handpicked to get Donnie back on a controlled spiritual path after he'd allegedly started clashing with Gabriel. You see, Gabriel Swaggart, Donnie's only son, was rising fast in the ministry. Young, articulate, and more modern in his approach to faith, Gabriel drew crowds and attention that Donnie hadn't seen in years. According to one anonymous source, Donnie felt sidelined and replaced by his own son. And that, some insiders say, triggered everything. Donnie couldn't handle that his boy was becoming more popular than him, the source claimed. He wanted to break free, make his own identity, and Judy was part of that. The marriage to Judy, however, didn't last. Behind the scenes, their relationship reportedly turned toxic within months. Arguments, financial disagreements, and accusations of manipulation spiraled. Judy, unafraid to confront Frances, once allegedly shouted during a meeting, "I'm not one of your puppets." Shortly after that outburst, Judy vanished from the Family Worship Center stage. Donnie, stone-faced and silent, returned to his pulpit. Then came the shocker. He remarried Debbie. Yes, after all the drama, Donnie remarried his first wife like nothing had happened. No public apology, no explanation to the church family, just business as usual. But why? According to leaked internal correspondence and testimonies from former ministry workers, Donnie's return to Debbie was orchestrated to preserve the Swaggart legacy. Church members had begun whispering about Gabriel's paternity, citing strange timelines and inconsistent details in ministry bios. Some believed Donnie divorced Debbie because of a private DNA revelation about Gabriel. Others argued it was the pressure from Frances, who always favored Gabriel and wanted to ensure that Debbie, who kept the family secret, stayed close. There was always something unspoken about Gabriel's birth, one former staff member said. Some of us were told to never question it, to never ask why his early records weren't clear. It was taboo. Could it be that Donnie's divorce was his way of escaping the weight of that secret? Could Judy have learned the truth and used it against him? Was Debbie always the keeper of the Swaggart dynasty's most explosive secret? We may never know the full story, but here's what we do know. Gabriel was born into a whirlwind of public scandal. At the time, Jimmy Swaggart Ministries was still reeling from Jimmy's infamous prostitution scandal. Donnie, under immense pressure, suddenly became the face of the next generation. Everything, his marriage, his child, his future, had to be perfectly managed. It's no stretch to imagine that a major cover-up took place to protect the ministry's fragile image. Some documents even suggest that Donnie left Debbie not out of hatred, but guilt. Guilt for decisions he made in his youth, guilt for possibly questioning the paternity of a child who grew up idolizing him, and guilt for running from the one woman who kept his secrets, even as he publicly discarded her. When Donnie returned to Debbie, it wasn't love that brought him back. According to insiders, it was leverage. Debbie knew too much. She held too many letters, too many recordings, too many moments that could unravel everything. They didn't reconcile. One person close to the family claimed they negotiated. And what of Judy? She reportedly suffered a mental breakdown after the divorce. Some say she tried to release a memoir, but was stopped by a legal order. Her whereabouts today remain unknown. Some suggest she lives quietly in another state under a different name. Others believe she received a large sum of hush money. The Swaggart empire, for all its polished glamour and Christian messaging, continues to guard its secrets like a fortress. Donnie still preaches. Debbie smiles beside him. Gabriel leads youth ministries with charisma, but beneath the surface, the cracks are showing.